of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Mued Tistarel. Chapter 72, Operation Treat Cat Dead, Part 3. Watching as Shouta left the cafe, her eyes glinting with excitement, her amber gaze then slipped to a girlfriend who'd similarly waved him off before she spun around, her smile luminous, and offered a thumbs up. Part 1 of their operation was a complete success.
He didn't suspect a thing. Okay, Hammer, you and Dabby Dabs are up,
she told him, her smile widening further as the teen huffed at her, his gloved hand holding up his phone for her to see.
They're 5 minutes away,
he stated with a tone that suggested very heavily that he knew what he was doing. As one of the young masterminds behind this mission, there was no doubt in her mind that he did, of course.
Yes,
she grinned.
What? I can only wait to meet them in person, you know? I briefly got to see Nick, but I didn't get to talk to him,
she continued, excited, her form leaning on the service bar as she sighed dreamily.
Getting to speak with them is gonna be so cool. I bet they have a ton of stories about cute little Shouta from back in the day, you know?
She enthused, her eyes becoming starry with the thought of it until, with a blink, she saw the younger man looking a little pensive.
Hey,
she said, her body settling over to give his shoulder a sisterly poke.
You're not nervous about meeting your new big brothers in the flesh, are you? You guys have been talking to each other over your phones a bunch too, right?
Watching as he shrugged, the pro felt her expression soften.
Tamara, they're going to adore you, you know?
She said, her tone a little quieter and definitely sincere.
And besides, if they don't, then they'll have to answer to me, you know?
She added with another light poke. Then the other chuckling out a little,
Thanks, Nissan.
He went back to his phone as the call came through.
Hey, Verizon,
he answered.
Nim has just given us the second signal. You can have around now.
Being included in something like this had made Sasaki Mirai feel warm, humble, and wanted. Sure, as his best friends, Toshinori and Nezu had always been there for him. However, as some of the most notable pros in the country, their days were long, their schedule full, the demands on their time far above what most people had to face. Therefore, when the Noroneko teens had created a group chat entitled Operation Treat Cat Dead, after the number one had inspired them to give Shouta a start to their summer unlike any other, well, he'd been beyond flattered, and as the younger children, alongside a few of their parents and the local pros all got involved, everything came to a head thanks to one Shinzo Hitoshi. Why don't we get his other brothers to come over for a little longer? Shoni misses them, I can tell, and it'd be nice for all of us to have a full weekend together instead of one day, right? So, can you adults get in touch with them and see if they can come by on Friday? Shoni would be real surprised, don't you think? There'd been a lot of praise lavished upon the boy, of course, and after a few calls, train tickets were purchased, further travel arrangements were made, and on top of the few gifts they'd all colluded to get for the man who never asked for a thing in exchange for everything he did, Toshinori just had to cap everything off, didn't he? Yagi Toshinori.
Since we could all be together on Saturday, I could close all my own land to the public, so we could have the place to ourselves for the afternoon. This way, the brothers can have Friday afternoon, evening, and Saturday morning to themselves, and we can begin summer properly together afterwards. What do you think?
How the chat messenger service hadn't crashed as all of the younger people flooded it with gifts displaying their excitement. You never know. And so, after double-checking with the care center siblings, the decision was made and the number one began to contact his staff. Closing such a popular park on a Saturday afternoon was sure to give him a headache. The board of directors whom oversaw the commercial side of his heroics wouldn't be happy after all. But the smile we'd seen on the other's face when they spoken later was beautiful. He'd not seen him this genuinely delighted in a long, long time. And as his best friend, he couldn't be more delighted himself. Toshinori was so much more than someone with the strength and force of will to save 1,000 people. He wasn't just a symbol. He wasn't just a hero. He wasn't just a bastion. No, he was a man who got lonely, a man who could rarely put his trust in anyone, A man who could rarely put his trust in anyone, really. For him to have met Aizawa Shouta back in May. For Shouta and the people he'd similarly knitted into a community to be the kind of person that he was, genuine, honest, completely unenamored, well, he couldn't be more grateful. He would truly love for them to become closer. He'd never had lasting relationships himself, but he knew that Toshinori longed for such a thing. It was lonely at the top of the world, wasn't it, he? Oh, hey boss, they've got to be the twins, right? Blinking out of his thoughts, Mariah looked away from the report he was supposed to be reading to follow where Centipede was gesturing, his mind conjuring up the photographs Dabby had sent him.
Yes, he smiled. I believe you're right,
he stated whilst giving the younger man's shoulder an affectionate pat before exiting the compact MPV they'd rented to pick up the older teenagers from Musutafu's largest train station, his body walking the short distance to the large structure's entrance.
Goshiken, Tadeo, and Takeo,
he asked, the brunettes turning to him, their athletics forms decked out in cargo shorts, sneakers, and cut-accented t-shirts in red and blue.
Sasaki-san,
the paler of the pair greeted with a warm smile and a polite bow, those enchanting eyes glinting behind round golden frames.
It's an honor to meet you, sir, and thank you for your time.
That's how you greet a guy who's gone to this kind of effort, is it? The broader, more muscular young man snorted, and before the future seer had realized what he was going on, his form was wrapped up in a bear hug, eerily similar to the ones that Toshinori liked to give. Thanks a bunch, Sasaki. We're really grateful, you know. Letting out a wheeze as he was put back down. His feet had been lifted off the ground. Hadn't Shouta told them all the twins were quirkless? He shouldn't be surprised at the young man's strength, considering who his jujitsu sensei was, he supposed. Mirai coughed out
The pleasure is all mine, and you're very welcome.
Then, in the span of 15 minutes or so, Naoki-kun, covered from head to foot in light clothing, the bark of his skin earning him a stare or two, and Seiji-kun similarly arrived, the four of them embracing outside the people carrier his sidekick would drive them in the cafe to.
What? Say, you need to quit growing, bro.
Says you. You're just a wall of muscle now, on.
Naoki-kun, you gotten so grown up too. Stop calling me Chang today, Oni-san. I'm not the baby of our family anymore, you know?
Chuckling to himself, the group merrily posing for a photograph. He then loaded them all in and offered them bottles of water from the chill hamper sat at his feet and watched quite fondly as they all began to talk, as though they'd never been apart. From their bright smiles, witty banter, and little snickers, it really wasn't hard to see the impact that Shouta had had on each of them. Standing beside his partner, who was nervous, you could tell, Dabby rested a gentle arm across his shoulder as they leaned against the service bar. He'd sent out a message to the regulars that the cafe was closed until Monday due to family matters. He'd stressed that there wasn't any problem or reason to worry. Kohaku-san, Mimi-chan, and his other unofficially official grandmothers had similarly calmed down the community.
Shouta-san is having a family reunion, folks. Here's hoping that they have a good one, eh?
The kindly fish-featured man had sent out with all the regulars, attaching little hearts and warm wishes to the master thread, too. It was hard to believe that the people of this area had come together, wasn't it? When he'd first skulked here, this place had been gray. The people were wary, the pickings were slim. He'd felt for sure that he'd have to turn to crime, and then on some random day, when he'd gone to check some new dusters he'd spotted, a crazy not-so-old guy had taken one look at him, seen the desperation behind his scowl, and turned his whole world upside down. Therefore, when thinking of that man, how could he not want to meet some of the first people he'd helped? And with a little time and patience, he was certain that Tomer would feel the same, that he'd start to forgive himself for a past that had been forced on him, that he'd realize he was a person of value who would be valued by others.
Oh, here they come!
Blinking out of his thoughts, he watched Tomoko, who, as Sho had predicted, had grown on both of them in a big way, just like the other local pros, and if his partner was honest, he was really starting to look up to Hizashi, the pair often sitting and having heated discussions of video game coding and things that went completely over his head. Spinner, too, had begged the jade-eyed man to tutor him. He'd agreed, of course, and in exchange, the gecko-quirked teen was going to start helping him out on his Friday night radio show. The look on the green-skinned boy's face had been really great to see. He may or may not have snapped a photo of it to blackmail him with later. Ding, ding. Blinking out of his thoughts, he watched as Mirai entered the eatery, his presence causing Nomori to get up from the booth she was sat in, whilst Tomoko, behind the service bar, was struggling not to launch herself over it. As their new older brothers followed in, their eyes wide and sleeping bags in hand, he felt,
Gentlemen, welcome to the Noroneko Cafe.
really glad.
This is so much better than the photos and... Oh, hey!
Mocking slightly, he felt Tomura flinch a little as the tall, broadest brunette carefully sidestepped Sonata and stood directly before them, those golden eyes wide and appraising. Man, he stated, his hands planted on his hips as he regarded them both, his smile warm. You two are way cooler in person, he told them with an owlish blink. Call me Takeo-ni, alright? He stated before gesturing at the others. That's Tadeo-ni. He's super smart and the next oldest after Aizawa-ni. Then there's Seiji-ni. He gives the best sports massages like he'll unravel knots you never knew you had. He praised whilst the blonde blushed a little. Then there's Naoki-ni, the jewel of our accomplishment crown, and he is real pleased not to be the youngest anymore. Isn't that right now, John? Oh, stop calling me cute in front of our new little brothers, you big jerk! The bark-skinned pro in training huffed, his arms folded as he shuffled forward. Seriously, though, it's great to meet you, he stated, his brown eyes regarding each in turn. Shoni talks very highly of both of you, and I'm really glad that you're both here, you know, he said. Then, at their blinking and blushing, the boy, only a few months older than them, sighed. I'm sure it hasn't escaped your notice that Shoni is a reckless idiot who never stops to think about himself, right?
He's the king of that,
his partner admitted, and at those soft words, he felt himself relax a little. He sure is. So we're more than grateful to you guys for keeping an eye on him for us. Takeo nodded, his grin sharpening a little. I keep threatening to kick his ass over it, and I will too, one of these days, he told them all firmly. Where is the self-sacrificing idiot anyway? We sent him out on errands so that you could surprise him, he finally said, his smile growing when the older man grinned back at him. Hey, he said you were smart, and it's great to put an actual face to the name, you know? The most confident brunette snickered before. With a charming smile, he spun to regard Nomori, his teeth actually glinting. And you must be the beautiful Nemu-chan, he purred, and then in a blur of movement, he shot finger guns at Tomoko, which would make you her gorgeous girlfriend Tomo-chan, am I right? What followed, as his eardrums would remember for a good while, was a bunch of squealing, fawning, hugging, and selfies. So many selfies, and yet as Centipede framed them for group shots, Marai got roped in, and they all ended up sprawled out inside the cat enclosure. Dobby couldn't have hoped for a better way to start a reunion with people he knew were his family. Damn, we couldn't wait for Shouta to arrive. 5 minutes or so later, saw them all talking. If it's not too personal to ask, he heard himself say, Homura purring in his lap as he sat lotus-styled between Seiji and Takeo. Sho was more than happy to offer his first name to us and Hitoshi to use, he said. So, why the Aizawa-ni? Watching as the four shared soft, almost saddened glances, Dobby felt a little wrong for scratching at his curiosity until,
this is probably gonna sound a little crazy, but Tadeo, of all people, began. Living in the care center was a special kind of hell, he admitted, his fingers gently combing through Hime's fluffy belt. Itsu-san was, drunk, he continued quietly. She never sexually abused us, you know, but even when she wasn't drinking, she was awful, he sighed. And Shouta, well, he was the oldest. He'd known what good parents were like, while the rest of us, well, we'd either been given away or lost ours a lot earlier, he admitted. Oh, shit, he shouldn't have. So even though he was 9, well, we kind of saw him as the adult in our lives. He had so much of his own hurt to deal with, so many of his own problems, but we always came first, he stated softly. Calling him by his family name, we felt, gave him the respect he deserved, and it respected his folks, too. He tried to smile. Sometimes it was really hard to think of him as just a kid like us, wasn't it? he asked, those gold amber eyes turning to his fellows.
Yeah,
Naoki breathed, his fingers projecting wispy branches for the Bombay kittens, Red Right and Kira, to pounce on.
and it's kind of my fault that he doesn't, sleep a lot.
No, Seiji breathed.
It's not, isn't it?
He asked, those brown eyes narrowing slightly.
I was the bedwetter. I was the one who kept having nightmares. I was the one pecking at my skin and crying all of the time, wasn't I?
Oi! Takeo cut in, his expression stern. You don't talk about yourself like that, he affirmed. You've lived through hell, Naoki, he told him firmly. It's a wonder that you stayed sane, and we all love you, don't we? Sho wanted to help you. We all did, he reminded. We all still do. And we're so freaking proud of you, man. And what would Sho say if he was here? What would he tell you right fucking now, huh?
My past isn't important.
The other chuckled, his voice a little raspy.
It's the future that matters.
So that's where that had come from. Feeling his shoulders slump a little, he quickly shared a glance with Tomura. His partner looked stricken and grateful and considering and validated. Shouta wasn't in the habit of saying things he didn't mean, was he?
You're damn straight,
the broadest of the brothers huffed, whilst Tadeo roped the bark-skinned youth and his partner into a hug that they both leaned into. And besides, if anyone is to blame for him insomnia, it's that bitch Itsu. Hell, if he didn't keep an eye out for her, then we'd have been beaten black and blue just for breathing. He took a lot of hits for us, didn't he? Grumbled. Man, I would love to run into her again. Maybe give her a taste of her own medicine, self-defense-wise. He furthered menacingly, his grin sharpening in a way that Dabi recognized. It was a look he'd worn when thinking about endeavor. It was the look Tomura had worn when he tried to leave them. Shit.
Last I heard, she was still incarcerated for drunk driving down in Osaka.
Shady huffed.
Thank God no one was hurt, and long may she stay there. She's got to be pushing 60 by now, too, so here's to her kicking the bucket someday soon.
He added, his hands gently running through Hahue's fur, while the rest of them looked on, all of them feeling the weight of their grief. God! He'd known that Shota's childhood had been hard. He'd alluded to as much. However, when he looked at the assembled bros, it was clear that, although they knew some things, they hadn't quite realized the extent of their friend's difficult start in life. What kind of strength did it take to live such a life and come through the other side, let alone to go on to build up an ambition to help others?
So much for him not being a monk, huh?